high tech.
We're back. Woohoo! We're outside and it's not snowing.
Yeah, and
that's my favorite.
So today, Mary, remember back in March we did a show about St. Patrick's Day?
Yes, we did.
And the Irish.
That's right. There is Irish people, and a lot of them in Trempealeau County.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at her over here. It's all about Nancy. Now,
it's all about me all the time.
We are actually doing an episode of the History Files.
And today we are going to talk about a group of people that there are a lot of them in Trempealeau County.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. The cemeteries are full of them, and we've seen that. We've seen that.
They're a tenacious, hardworking people, and they are the Norwegians.
Yes, because they are coming up on what day?
17th of May. I think that's 17 Mai, right?
17 Mai.
Yep. So I thought, you know, since we did the Irish, we better do the Norwegians, or we're going to have people throwing rocks at us.
Well, didn't that happen to you when you were in town the other day?
Good. Very easily. So today, because we're going to be celebrating 17 Mai, I have a special gift for Mary.
Oh,
she's half Norwegian.
Bite? Does it bite?
You'll find out. She's half Norwegian, so let's see.
Who's this? Who's this? This is not Zip. We have a guest.
We've got guest dogs. This is Eddie.
Oh, look at this. Perfect. Perfect. There we go. Now I scared the dog away.
No.
And who's the fuzzy one that's camera bombing us?
That's Eddie.
That's Eddie.
She looks a lot like my dog, doesn't she?
Yes, she does. Yeah. Is it a she or a he?
It's a he.
It's a he. I was going to say, Eddie's not really a... Hey, Zip. Oh, here we come. Now they're going to be in competition. But looping back to our subject at hand.
We're going to talk about something that it's really an interesting story. And it started, we'll start off talking about the World's Fair in 1893. Okay. And that was actually in Chicago.
Okay.
And what they said they were doing is they were going to celebrate the 400th anniversary of Columbus coming to the New World.
Okay. 400 years celebrating Columbus.
Yes. And so the fact that Chicago was going to have this World's Fair was huge, because before they always had them like in New York.
Right, too far to go.
Right, or Philadelphia, someplace that was on the East Shore. So by having it in Chicago, it was showing that the Midwest had really arrived, and that, you know, we were a vibrant, big, you know, industrial
We were a big
place.
deal,
Yes.
folks. It's about time they ponied up and did a party in the Midwest.
And it was a huge party, and what they did was they took the swamp that got drained, more or less. And
wetland busting.
Yep, they did. They designed this, what they call the White City, and it's incredible. It was all these big, huge buildings, and in what they called the neoclassical style, which made it look like Rome or Greece.
Right.
And they looked like they were made out of marble or stone, and actually what they were made out of, they were framed up with pine, and then they used this stuff, they called it staff, and it was a mixture of concrete and sawdust and various materials, and they kind of plastered it with that and painted everything white. So it looked like this huge city of marble buildings, and it wasn't. But anyway,
well, but you
good.
got to give them an A for effort, right?
Well, it wasn't, because they had 27 million visitors.
Over how many days?
I think it was going for like 3 or 4 months.
Wow, but that's a lot of people.
You know how much it costs to get in?
How much?
50 cents.
50 cents?
50 cents.
Wow, I think if you go to some of those fairs now, I think they're a little pricey.
If you want to go to Disney World these days, you're going to have to really dig deep, I'll tell you. This was a deal. And they also, the railroads would give people deals to come down and see it.
Okay.
And so a lot of people went to see it, and I think, I bet the people that are watching this They probably had ancestors that went down to see the World's Fair.
And that was a major event in their lives, wasn't it?
Well, it was. Imagine taking a train all the way from, say, Whitehall down to Chicago to see this incredible World's Fair.
Especially coming from
Whitehall.
Whitehall, or better yet, out in the country.
Sure, it was huge. It was just life transforming.
When the biggest deal was to go down to the Temperance Hall on Sunday.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, this is a little different size class.
And it made over $33 million.
And that, I wonder what that would be in today's money.
Oh gosh, it'd probably
Billions.
be tripled, wouldn't it?
Billions.
Yeah, it'd be tripled. And it was just so for so many people that got to see it, it just changed their lives. And it spread the idea of the city beautiful, because a lot of the cities around that time in the 1890s, they weren't beautiful.
They were kind of tough looking.
They were.
I mean, you know, they didn't have the modern conveniences, and a lot of the streets weren't paved well.
There wasn't lighting or anything.
No,
Yeah.
no, a lot of shady places.
A lot of animals are going up and down the street, so you can imagine what it was like.
Yeah, kind of chaos.
Well, and probably kind
Controlled.
of smelly.
Oh, controlled, smelly chaos. Oh, those are happy thoughts for the day.
But they wanted to really try to, make Chicago look good and prosperous, and that was they achieved that. And there were some things that came out of that World's Fair, things that we are used to nowadays, but at that time they were brand new. And the one thing was Aunt Jemima pancake mix.
Oh, I loved Aunt Jemima.
For the first time was brought out.
Really?
Yep, that was brand new there. First sold at the fair. Another thing was cream of wheat.
Yeah, cream of wheat. Those are, I think both of them are staples, although Aunt Jemima Company, that name's changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, within the last, I think, year or two.
Yeah, something has changed anyway. Maybe it's Aunt Jemima. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they redid her appearance or something. I don't know. But that was where it was first sold. And there was also a gentleman that he saw a demonstration at the German pavilion of making German chocolate. He was so impressed that he went back to Pennsylvania and started his own process, and that became Hershey's chocolate.
Wow, that's interesting, isn't it?
And at the World's Fair, that was where PABST won their blue ribbon.
Yes, PABST Brewery. You know, they had cows in Milwaukee. They had a herd at one time. We'll have to dig into that.
Really?
Yeah, yeah,
Not?
PBR,
Cool.
PABST Blue Ribbon.
And Quaker Oats, we all know Quaker Oats. They were first promoted there as a breakfast cereal. They were really promoting breakfast food.
It must have been.
Yeah, for some reason.
Well, get those farmers fed, right?
Get them fed and out the door, And they also, they had contracted with Nicholas Tesla, who people have heard of.
Yes, yes.
Yep, he was kind of, he and Edison were both working with electricity, which was a really new idea then. And he promoted the idea of electricity as being safe.
Well, people had gas lights in their house.
Yeah, and but they didn't know about electricity.
Right.
Yeah. So they actually did, I think they lit up this World's Fair with electricity and proved that it could be safe and effective.
Well, because people could see what was going on in their pretend buildings.
And also the first dishwashing machine was previewed there.
Yeah, and it's hard to find a house that doesn't have one of those.
Mine.
I have one, unapproved purchase, that is great for storage.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it makes like a nice cupboard with a nice countertop on it.
I probably, I know that I'm weird, but I still wash dishes by hand.
So do I. I'm a weirdo too. Oh, did I actually say that on the air?
You're a weirdo.
That's how my hands stay clean.
And it was a KitchenAid.
Oh, KitchenAid. That's a very, very well-known company that's still, I think, in operations today.
Yeah, I think so. It was such a huge deal. It was just this incredible, the first Ferris wheel was there. And that also
Wow.
was immense. It's bigger than any Ferris wheel we ever see around here.
Right, right.
Yeah, because it had all these gondolas, and it could get like 2,000 people on it at one time.
That is just incredible.
Yeah, it went up and around slowly, but
Yes.
imagine being able to see the whole fair in Chicago. It was,
Yeah,
people were
because from that
impressed.
vantage point, they could see the entire complex.
Oh yeah,
Could they?
could. Yeah, it was actually, it took 9 minutes for it to go up and around.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was, and the guy that invented it, his name was George Washington Gale Ferris Jr.
Okay.
So
That's a long name.
Yep. Another thing they previewed there was you could spray paint, but they did it by hand.
Yes.
Yes.
With kind of like, they look like fly guns
Yeah.
that they
it
used
was
to spray
pneumatic.
chemicals out.
And another thing that was on display for the first time were zippers.
Oh, I suppose it was button era, right?
Yeah, it was zippers. So that was immense.
And you don't even think about zippers today unless one breaks.
That's right. And then I get really angry.
Nancy, angry, I don't buy
Oh, yeah.
it.
And then another thing they had that just really was a star attraction was they had a belly dancer.
There we go. That's getting a little on the racy
Well,
side.
it was. Her name was Little Egypt.
Little
and she became
Egypt.
incredibly popular and very, very famous as a belly dancer.
Did she ultimately end up in movies because of it?
I have to trace her. I don't know what happened to Little Egypt, but
Another show in the
Yep,
making.
Yep. And all these big buildings, this white city, they said that inspired a man by the name of L. Frank Baum.
Okay.
He was the guy that wrote The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, the Emerald City.
Yep, he was impressed with the white city, and that he modeled his the Emerald City of Oz on that World's Fair. That's what they said anyway.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, you know what happened is this was 1893, and a year later, these were all just supposed to be temporary buildings.
Right.
And they certainly were, because in 1874 there was a fire and it all burned down,
Yeah.
except for a couple of buildings.
Well, you know, with that internal wood structure, once it
Yeah.
goes, it goes.
And there were only a couple buildings that were saved, and one was the building that today houses the Museum of Science and Industry down in Chicago. That's from there. And then the other one is one we're going to talk about today because it relates to Norway.
Okay.
And before we talk about Norway, I want to tell something about Mary's famous Viking ancestors, and these are some names of famous Vikings that you're probably related to.
Uh-oh. The plot thickens. We're finding out way too much about me.
No, BJORN Ironside,
Oh. That sounds like a good strong name.
Ivar the Boneless.
Ivar the Boneless.
Well, they thought maybe he had something like Parkinson's or
Oh, okay.
anyway. And there was another guy whose name was EGIL SKALGORGRIMSON. Right, don't ask me to say it again.
SKALGORGRIMSON. Okay, let's, who's next on the family tree?
There was a guy called Bluetooth,
Okay.
and I don't think it meant the technology either. I don't have nothing to do with
Hey, wait a minute. I should be getting credits. What do they call that? Copyright.
Right.
They took my name, my family name.
And then another one was called THORKEL the Tall.
Oh, okay. So then why are most of us kind of on the short side?
Well, I just think it's really interesting. I love those names. Don't you?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah.
And how do you think they're related to me?
Well,
She
why
made
not?
that up.
I bet you can trace them back some way.
Actually, I think when it boils down, everybody's related to everybody.
Well, I mean, even I found out when I did the DNA that I had 7% Norwegian, so that had to be from when the Vikings were raiding Norway or
so
raiding Ireland.
we're cousins.
We probably are.
See how small our world gets.
But we're going to talk about another building that did not burn down at the fair, and that was Norway's contribution.
Okay.
And the fair was starting in 1893, and there was a deadline. But Norway didn't really get going on this project till 1892.
Oh, so they were kind of behind the 8 ball.
They were not getting off to a fast start. They had an architect by the name of Albert Hanstein, and what they wanted to do was build a replica of one of those Stave churches.
Those are beautiful
They're
churches.
Unique.
They
yeah.
are.
They're all crafted with wood, and inside was carvings. So they decided they were going to do a Stave church, and they were going to use Norwegian pine.
Okay.
And they got all these craftsmen together because it would take a really good craftsman and people that were woodworkers.
Well, you had
carvers.
The entire structure was so ornate and put together with everything was wood.
It was, and it was beautifully done. And I think the way they designed those Stave buildings, it was to shed snow. I got that impression, you know, real steep angles. Yes. And so they made it out of the Norwegian pine, and they had wood carvers there, and they put on all the different gables, they had these handcrafted dragons that were, you know, like breathing fire, were up there like gargoyles.
Oh my goodness.
On top of the structure was a huge flagpole, and on top of that was the flag of Norway.
Of course, that makes perfect sense.
And then if you went inside, it was all beautifully wood carvings. They had carvings of the kings and queens of Norway.
Well, how many people did they have working on this project? It had to be immense.
Yeah, I think there were quite a few, and they were really under a deadline.
Well, the clock is ticking.
It was, but they got it put together. And the roof, they call that fish scale. Those, I don't know, which they were like shingles.
They look like fish scales.
Yep. And they were actually thick, you know, they were pretty thick, but it was pretty amazing. They got it all put together, and this was near Trondheim.
Okay.
And there's a port there called ORKLUND.
So they built it in Norway?
They did, and they let the public come and see it, and then they took it apart.
Oh, like a jigsaw puzzle.
They took it apart.
Oh my goodness.
And they were trying to beat this time, you know, limit. So they put it on this ship called the Hekla and sent it off. You know, this was 1892 in, I think, February or March.
Oh my goodness. The the Atlantic seas, I can just see what's coming.
What happened is the Hekla got out to the middle of the ocean and it broke down. And everybody on there, and this had to be rescued by another ship. So they were really behind time by the time they got to the United States.
So they took that entire church from one ship and put it on another ship?
That's what it sounded. It didn't go in. I don't know if they were able to repair it, but whatever, they got this, you know, very much behind time.
And there was no AAA?
Nope, and no, they finally got it to the World's Fair site. And they were working on it, and they had to have special people there reassembling it, and they had to work all night, which meant they got double pay.
Oh, so this
was expensive.
This was a pretty lucrative deal for those craftsmen.
And this was kind of done, it was kind of on the north edge of where this fair was. That's probably why it didn't burn down. But they finally got it put together, and you know, it was beautiful.
Right.
Yeah, it was just beautiful. But then the fair ended, and most of the buildings there on the fairgrounds were designed to just be knocked down. You know?
Yeah. Well, it was a temporary city.
Right. But then they weren't sure what to do with this beautiful Stave building, but there was a very rich man by the name of Billings that thought that would be perfect on his estate by Lake Geneva.
Oh, there's our Wisconsin link.
So they took it apart again.
Oh my God. This is an incredible transforming church. Was it? Oh, they must have had a priest there or a pastor there every time they took it down and rebuilt it.
But they got it, they put it on his estate. And this man had a lot of money, and what they mainly used it for, he said they had card parties there.
Oh, so it was kind of like a man cave church.
Well, and yeah, they had parties and things.
Right.
Yeah, they weren't living in it. And actually, finally, a man by the name of Mitchell bought it. He bought the property because this building's moved to California. So this other guy bought it, and it was there on his estate. And then in 1911, a man by the name of William Wrigley bought it. Have you ever heard the name Wrigley? What do you
Wrigley
think of?
Field.
And Wrigley chewing gum. That's how he made his money.
I see the connection.
And he bought it and fixed it up, and it was there in Lake Geneva for a long time. Well, and then in the 1920s, a man by the name of Isaac Dahl, who had made a lot of money in the insurance, decided that he was a huge collector of Norwegian artifacts.
Okay.
He had even sent people to Norway to run around and buy Norwegian antiques. He had a lot of money. He was living up by Mount Horeb, and one day when he was out driving, he went by this old farm, and it had all these beautiful old log buildings, and it had been owned by some Norwegians, and he decided he had to have that.
Oh boy, Norwegian collectible buildings.
Yep. So he did. He purchased this farm, and he was fixing up all these old Norwegian farms. Took it down.
Again? So how many, this is what, the fourth time?
I think it's the fourth time they took it down. He brought it up to his Mount Horeb farm and had it reassembled and fixed up. Now this was in the middle of the Depression, so he provided a lot of jobs for people to come and do all
You
this.
bet, and I bet you those jobs had meals attached to them as well.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, that was a hard time.
And when he got this all done, you could actually drive by and you could see the Stave church there from the road, and so he decided he would open it as a a tourist attraction, and it was called Little Norway.
Oh.
And I bet there's people out there that have heard of it or saw it.
Right.
Because this was right at the time in the 30s when people were starting to drive around in their
Yep,
cars.
people are starting to move.
Yep. And it was a huge attraction. I think 2 different kings in Norway over the years came to see it. And it was well taken care of. And unfortunately, poor Mr. Dahl didn't enjoy it very long before he died of cancer.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, but then his daughter took it over and ran it, so it stayed in the family.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, and then eventually, in 2012, it would have been like his grandson decided they just couldn't do it anymore.
Okay.
He wasn't interested in it. And it had kind of gone down a little bit because, there's lots of attractions now.
Right.
Yeah, but at the time in the 30s, this was a huge thing, this Little Norway.
Right, because it was like a replica of home. And when the immigrants left Norway, most of them never went back.
It was really celebrating Norwegian craftsmanship, especially the wood carving and everything. And it was unique, but as time passed, there were lots of other things for people to see as well.
Right.
So in 2012, they closed Little Norway, but in 2014, a man by the name of Peter Qualley came and he saw it. He was from Norway, and he thought that it ought to come back to Norway.
Oh, now we're taking it apart again, people.
So in 2015,
that's those Norwegian pines were well traveled.
So in 2015, it was taken apart again, and they shipped it back to Norway. They had raised a lot of money in Norway to bring it back, and it's there today. It is back near Trondheim in this, it's a village or city called ORKLUND.
Now, is that where it kind of came from?
Yes, that was where it came from. And they said it's beautifully preserved, and
well, now we're going to need to put some pressure on to get somebody to send us to Norway.
Send Mary and Nancy to Norway. Yes. So we can see the Stave church, which is still there.
And then we'll bring it back to you.
Yeah, isn't that an amazing story?
That is amazing, especially considering the time and the talents. Oh, look at that. Violence. Stop the violence.
We're just having a good time and it's ringing.
It always does that to us, Nancy.
But anyway, I thought that was an interesting story that had a Wisconsin connection.
Yes.
And another thing that the Norwegians did for this World Fair was they made a replica of a Viking ship.
Yes.
And they were going to have a crew sail it to the United States to prove that Norwegians could have been here a long time before, you know.
I think
Columbus.
they were. I think nowadays they're finding more and more things that are leaning towards yes. People have been here long. We've been jumping in and out of this country for a long time.
And the Norwegians were incredible mariners.
Yes, seafarers.
I just can't imagine going in a little ship like that and just sailing off and not really knowing where you were going, but that's what they did.
Yeah, well, you know, that was their role.
That was it. Just incredible. So that's Mary's bloodlines.
There we go. And thank you all.
Yeah, it's her Viking roots that we're celebrating today, and we want to say to all the Norwegian people that are still here, their ancestors that are here are in Trempealeau County, they have helped make this county the great place that it is.
Exactly,
Yes,
exactly. It's our diversity that makes us great. All right, Zip?
Yes, Zip wants to get in the picture because we haven't let her get in the picture for a long time.
Now I'm going to be all dog dirty.
Oh, that's all right. Well,
And
anyway.
Thank you for joining us on the History Files.